document I have created replicates the instruction. So this is your mock exam in January, right? You come back and, oh dear, what does my exam paper say? All right. So these are the instructions on your paper 1. All right. So these are the things you need to be aware of. Firstly, you need to write it. Now, again, I'm making the assumption that in January you're going to be actually sitting there writing it. Okay, whole different kettle of fish if we are back at school. If we're not back at school and we're doing this online, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. All right, so you all should have a copy of this. You can add it to your revision files. In fact, in your revision files, you might even have one that's specific to the mock. I don't know how you organize your files, but that's an idea. Okay, now what I've done is this is the, it's what you see on the actual exam paper. So to try and make it as accurate and close to what you're going to see, I've just copied what they put in the actual exam paper, okay? So typically you do your paper 1 in soft pencil, yeah? Now, for our mock exam, because paper 1 is your multiple choice, okay? So you'll have your exam paper, your question paper, and then you have like an answer key where you put, you know, for question number 1, I put A and B, I circle A and B and so forth. And you do that with your soft pencil. Okay, that's how the exam works. You don't do it with pen. I'm guessing, now I don't know if this is the truth, but it does sound to me a little bit like if they're using pencil still, then they're probably doing Scantron, right, where they put it into the computer and just go, and it scans all of the graphite and then says whether you got the answer right or wrong. I'm going to guess that. That's what I'm guessing at this point. All right, you can have a pen, and I suggest, obviously, do have a pen. And my suggestion with that is that you, in the pen, with your pen, you go through the question book, and in the question book, you circle which questions, which answers you selected, okay? So you're putting your answers in the answer sheet, but you're going to be in the question book circling which answers you picked, right? And the reason for that is so that when the exam is over, you've got 2 copies. You've got your answer sheet and you've got the question book that has also got your answers in it, so you can actually match them up and see. Right? The other reason for getting into that practice is so that when you do it for the real thing, right, one of the things you may not be aware of is those question papers at the end of your exam, you don't get to keep them for the real thing, right? They come to me, okay? Now, what that means is if you have circled, okay, all the questions, I can actually go through that and have a look and see how many you got right. And I quite like doing that because it gives me a bit of an indicator as to where you're going, all right? And I have had learners who've come to me and asked, and I've said to them, you know, you got 90% in that. That was really good. Right? I had 2 learners in Thailand, and they did the multiple choice, and then I got both their papers back, and they both got only 1 question wrong in the entire thing, but they got different questions wrong, which I thought was quite interesting. Right, do not use staples, do not use paper clips. I mean, I don't know that you would anyway. Again, this is what the actual exam paper says. Don't use glue. I'm not entirely sure why you would be wanting to use glue. Or, and this might be a temptation for some of you, correction fluid. Do not use it. All right, pretend you don't have it. Don't even take it to the exam. All right, even the mock exam, don't bring it. Okay. Now, the actual exam says write your name, centre number, and candidate number on the answer sheet. Now, you don't need to do that for the mock exam. Okay, so I've just put a cross through that bit. But on the actual exam, you will have to write your centre number and candidate number on the answer sheet, but you'll have those codes in a little ID card, so you'll be able to do that. All right. Do not write in any barcodes. Well, that kind of makes sense, I hope. Right, 30 questions for the paper, answer all questions. I know, and you guys have heard me rail about this before, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I'm old and I do that. You must answer all the questions. I don't care if you've got no idea what the answer is, answer the question. Pick one, right? There's a greater chance for you to get it right if you pick something than if you leave it blank, right? When there's no chance of you getting it right. All right, each question, there are 4 possible answers, A, B, C, and D. You choose the one that you consider correct and record your choice in soft pencil on the answer sheet. Read the questions carefully. Each correct answer scores 1 mark, and a mark will not be deducted for the wrong answer. So that's, you know, helpful information. There are some exams, and we used to have them in New Zealand in particular, where if you wrote an answer and it was multiple choice and you got it wrong, they actually subtracted a mark from your score. So yes, there were some who ended up with negatives in their score, which was a bit sad, but that's all right. Any rough working out should be done in the question booklet. So as I say, if you have a pen, then you'll be able to do little sketch graphs. You'll be able to do some calculations if need be, right in there. Paper 2. So paper 2 is your extended response paper. Now in paper 2, for you all, you actually answer in the booklet, in the answer booklet, all right? You write all of the answers in there. You might need extra pages, in which case you stick up your hand and you ask for extra pages. And I would suggest you do that. My recommendation always is ask for extra paper. Even if you don't need it, having extra paper means you've also got the opportunity to do some planning, right? To do some sketch graphs, some calculations that aren't then interfering with your actual answers. All right. So we have an answer booklet. Right, you're going to answer for paper 2. You're going to answer 4 questions. Now, it does get a little bit confusing here. 4 questions. So section A, you're going to answer 1 question. 1. Right, because there is only 1 question. And you have to answer that question. So that's 1 of the 4. That's the one with the long case study and then the questions that follow. All right. Now, we've talked about that before. We've shown you examples before. You've seen examples when you've downloaded papers for yourself. But section A can throw some students. They can get a bit confused with it because the length of the case study, I have to read all of this. You don't necessarily have to read all of that. We talked a bit through that. All right, look at the questions, all right, and work out from the questions what it is that you need. There's possibly a faster way to do it. Now, section B, however, you need to answer 3 questions. Now, in section B, there's going to be a choice. You're going to have to pick which question to answer. All right, questions to answer. So there will be anything up to 6 questions in that section, and you'll have to answer 3 of them. Quite often there's only 4, but there might be 5 or 6. Right, depends on the year. Okay, so if you're downloading past papers, you will have seen that. All right, and again, you need to have a small amount of time as possible to go, yes, I choose this question. Yes, I choose that question. Yes, I choose that question. All right, and there's where your planning and stuff can come in as well. You can look, as we said, look at those top higher mark questions and try and decide, can I answer that and get as good a mark as I can? Okay. What about the one before that and the one before that? Yes, okay, that's my best choice. I'll go for that one. Rather than reading each case study and then each question. All right, that follows the case study. You'd look at the questions first, look at the ones that give you the most marks. Can I answer those? What about the ones before that? Okay, happy enough with this question. Choose that one and then have a look at the others. Remember, do 3. Now, okay, so traps for young players. There are lots, okay? First one is to get confused between this answering 4 question business, all right? And to try and answer 4 questions from part B. Yes, I've had that before, and not answer part A, okay? You must answer the question in part A and then answer 3 questions from B. The other one that I've had before is the students when they do the answering 3 questions, because each case study has like A, B, C, and D, all right, parts to them. They've answered like the A, B, C, and D sort of idea, and that's it. Oh, I've done my 3 questions. No, right? It's full questions. It's not the parts of the questions that you need to answer. So that's another trap for young players. The next trap for young players is where you write the answers. You write the answers on the paper that you're given. Okay, that's important because, again, I've had this before. I've had learners attempting to write the answers into the question book, and you don't have enough space to do that. Okay, so you're going to run out of space, and then it's all stress, and then what do I do? And then, oh, then I need extra paper, and then it becomes confusing as to which, you know, right? If you are the sort of learner who's going to write over multiple pages, multiple extra pages, you need to also make sure that you have clearly written at the top which question is on that extra page, okay, so that we can follow it easily. Right, follow the instructions. If you need additional paper, ask. As said, you may use a calculator. So for both paper 1 and paper 2, there's a certainty that there are going to be calculation questions. So, unless you desperately want to try and do it in your head, I'd say bring a calculator, all right? Yeah. Now there are, if you're going to have those sort of fancy programmable 20 million computer sorts of calculators, then yeah, you might need to get it checked, okay, to make sure it's all okay. But otherwise, you just bring a calculator, and it can't be the calculator on your phone. And yes, I've had that question before too. All right. Each question, all right, you look at the marks. Okay, so content covered. Now, I've just listed the content, essentially. I don't think there's anything different from there than what you're probably expecting. And then the timings, okay, your extended response paper is quite clearly the longer one, but you've got more to do in it, all right? And your paper 1, which is your multi-guess, that's only going to take you a short period of time, right? So remember time management. When you're in the exam, you're working out, if this is an 8-mark question, how long do I spend on it, okay? If this is a 1-mark question, how long do I spend on it? And then spend that time at most, right, so that you're able to complete the thing in the time that you're given. Right, reminder for paper 2, you're only answering 1 question in part A. All right, and here's an example of the format, okay? You have calculate questions, which are 1 mark, identify questions, that's 1 mark, define questions, they're 2 marks, explain questions, 4 marks, analyze 4 marks, analyze 5 marks potentially, right? Discuss whether or not for 6 and discuss whether or not for 6, right? So that's your part A. Okay, so that's quite a bit to do, but you'll note these definitions and identification ones aren't going to take very long. All right, you're going to spend a bit more time down in this end here. Okay, so you have a look at these and you answer these, make sure that you're doing that well. Now, my rule of thumb with these tended to be for the bigger questions that you start a new page. All right, so if it's a 6-mark question, it should be on a separate page to the next 6-mark question. All right, if it's a 5-mark question, it should be on a separate page to the 6-mark question. All right, you can possibly get away with 2 4-mark questions on the same page. You can get away with the calculate, the identify, and the define on the same page. You could even possibly do calculate, identify, define, and explain on the same page. All right, I think getting to and then maybe have analysis and analysis on a separate page. All right, and then you're looking these 2 at a whole page each, at least. All right. So for the entire thing, you're probably looking at, let's see there, 1 page, 2 page, 3, 4, minimum 4 pages worth of writing, minimum. Oh, for that section, that's just part A. Then you get to part B, and you got the small case studies. The small case studies, remember you're doing 3 of them, answer 3. All right, so you read the case study, answer the questions that follow. There is generally either a state or a define to start them off, and they're 2 marks. Then there is an explain question, an analyze question, and a discuss whether or not question. So again, the same rule applies. The discuss whether or not question should be on a separate page. All right, you could probably get away with your state 2 or define 2 and your explain on a page, 1 page. I don't think you should try and add the analyze onto that same page. So you'd end up with 1, 2, 3, minimum 4 pages again. So that's, when you add those 2 together, that's a minimum of 8 pages worth of writing just for your paper 2. All right, so that's a fair bit, okay, as you can understand. And then I've just further done this idea about your multiple choice. Right, definitions, calculations. Remember, there will be calculations in there. There will be interpretations of data. There will be information in there that's in data form, like unemployment rates, and then you have to explain what that tells us. Right? There will be some analysis, so it will be what happens if, right, the government puts a price ceiling on. Right? Then I've left a space for you all, so you can copy this document, put it into your revision, and then you can put the dates and the times that you're going to be sitting your paper 1 and paper 2. So you've got a full plan set up. Right, so that's that. Now if I go back to you all, so stop sharing. Right, now, ladies and gentlemen, are there, after all of that, are there any particular questions? Because we now need to start really focusing quite hard on your mock exam. You must get, as we've said, and I said to parents, you need to get a really good mark in your mock. Okay? It needs to be ahead of the mark that you got in your mid-course so that you're showing progress, but it also needs to be a good mark. Right? No Ds, please. Thank you. Questions? Mock exam, paper structure, expectations, time management. Okay. You may not, you may think of questions later. That's absolutely fine. Right? You need a revision schedule. I know your tutors will have been talking to you about it, your head of year will have been talking to you about it, your mum and dad will have been talking to you about it, and quite clearly your teachers like myself are talking to you about it. You must have a revision schedule, a plan to cover all of the content within each subject over the period of time that you have. All right? You've got a little bit on about 5 weeks of time. You're going to also need to have some mental break time. Okay, that's absolutely fine. All right, as I've said to you before, if you chunk into your time, into your calendar, small windows of time to do your revision, that way you're not going to overwhelm yourself. If you're expecting to do a whole paper and then another whole paper and then another whole paper, you're quite probably going to drown in it. All right. You also need to try and do physical things as well. I used to do at most an hour of work and then get up and go for a run because I can't sit still for huge hour-long lengths of time. At least I couldn't when I was younger. All right, but it's good for you. Get your blood going and get up, move around. All right, but do have a plan. Do look at the specific learning objectives from the topics. Okay, use those as your criteria. Even use them as a checklist and go through. I know this. I know this. I know this. Come up with your real-life examples. Look at the case studies. Find a practice question related to a topic that's in one of your weaker areas and strengthen that. Right, there's very little point in you continually practicing questions you're good at. All right, if you know the elasticity calculations like that, then there's no point in you continually revising them. Yes, do revise them, absolutely. All right, very important. But if you're weaker in the labour market, then review the labour market. If you're weaker in maximum and minimum prices, then review maximum and minimum prices. If you're weaker in consumer decisions about saving and spending or the functions of money, then review that. When we were on our original lockdown, okay, we went through monetary and fiscal policy, right? Some of the things that we did. So it may be that they are areas that you need to do some more work on. Now, I've also posted into the classroom a practice question from paper 2. All right, it's just one. All right, short case study. It's on, when's this one on? I think this is economic growth. So it's about recessions, this one, I believe. It may have a connection to international trade as well. I'm hoping. I think I'll put that one in. So here's my plan. Okay, go through the exam format. If there are questions, email. All right, so here's your tasks. Go through the exam format, questions, email me. You need to have downloaded another couple of past papers. All right, keep that bin of past papers full. All right. You're going to need to start work on this practice question and have a go through that. If there are previous practice questions that you still need to complete, you can work your way through those. If there are practice questions that we've already done where I gave you feedback on them, then you think to yourself, well, I might try and improve my answer for that, improve your answer, resubmit. Okay. And then, of course, there's always elearneconomics.com, which just tops off that revision, which you can do 5-10 minutes worth. Okay. All right. So other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we will actually close off the meet here so that you can go and do that work. Do set yourself a revision timetable. Right, get that off the ground. Make sure that you are making the best use of this opportunity, because it will go by really quickly and you'll be sitting these exams before you know it. And then I'm going to be asking you how you thought you did and what you think you can improve on. I'd much rather you were getting A's and B's. Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, as we'd say in the land of my birth, unless there are further questions, we'd say hey konera, which means goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
See you. See you.